Today I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about using Twitter in the political science classroom. Really could be any classroom. I'm also thinking this could also be both a political science face-to-face class, political science online class, but just generally how do you use Twitter with students in the higher ed classroom. First of all, I might address the issue of what is Twitter. Twitter is a social networking software. It allows people to connect with other people. Some observers might argue maybe a little over-connected. We know what everybody's doing every time of day. Does it really matter that you know your best friend is brushing his teeth right now? But it's still social networking. It allows people to get connected. People who might not otherwise talk with each other or converse with each other, connect with each other, can do it through social networking. And Twitter has been rapidly growing over the last several years. Some of that growth has been slowing down dramatically as Twitter is being replaced by other social networking softwares. Facebook and Twitter are in good, probably head-to-head competition, with Facebook being a little bit more application-heavy, whereas Twitter is a lot more simple. One of the challenges, of course, is I did a survey of my students for the summer class this summer, and only about 10% of them use Twitter. Thought that was very interesting. I guess they're not so connected, and maybe if they were, I wouldn't say forced, but part of a class project, participated in a Twitter activity, then they might be more likely to use it. Twitter is based on information, sharing information about yourself, sharing information about what you're doing, and this information are called tweets. They're short messages on Twitter. When you sign up for Twitter, you get you of course set up an account, and you have a username and things, and people then can connect with you. Those folks who follow you, not surprisingly, are called followers, and whenever you post something on Twitter, that your network of followers will get that post called a tweet. And the tweet has to be no longer than 140 characters. This has led to a process that some folks call microblogging. Instead of a big blog posting you put on a weblog, a big list of activities or a review or something, you can only have 140 characters. But one of the things you can do is you can link to other websites. There's been a development where there's been software packages, programs that have been developed that'll take your long URL and shrink it down into a tiny URL. All of Twitter's activities are based on SMS, which stands for Short Message Service. It's the way when you use your cell phone to send someone a text message, that's the Short Message Service. That's in large part why it has to be 140 characters or less. One of the things you can do is you can let your friends know, your followers know about gatherings, activities, if there's going to be a party or some sort of meeting, social activity, whatever. But you can also use the Twitter website. The Twitter website is free. Signing on is free. There's no cost. And the tweets will then appear on your Twitter website, the people you're following as well as your tweets. But you can also use Twitter on a cell phone. One of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit is the limitation of using your cell phone, because you're still required to pay any receiving or incoming or outgoing short message service text. So you're required to pay for those. So that's where it becomes less free. Some of the limitations. One of the major limitations is that you can only post up to 140 characters. But that, of course, requires you to be brief, concise, yet still try to pack a lot of information into a tiny space. One of the limitations of Twitter overall is that there doesn't appear to be a revenue stream, any type of way for Twitter to sustain itself in terms of finances and funding and expansion. There's been some concern about that among the higher ed community, the higher ed technology, information technology, educational technology communities, that Twitter may just disappear. One of the other, probably the third, and it may or may not be as important, is the inability to directly include images on Twitter. Some of the third-party software, one in particular called TwitPic, allows you to take pictures. You essentially email it to TwitPic, and then TwitPic will post it up on Twitter for you. You can also do things like post your images on websites and then send a link to that website. One of the limitations, of course, could also be an advantage, a good point of Twitter, is that 140 character limitation. What it'll do is it'll focus a student in a class to just focus on that one important thought, that's the strongest point, without being so wordy and being so verbose, I guess, on the discussion. It'll create more focused discussions. Plus, with the SMS feature, you can access Twitter on cell phone. You can also, while you're at an event, post information. Recognizing, of course, that not all event organizers like you to post information about their event. I know, for example, the NCAA for college sporting events has some limitations on what you can blog from a sporting event, in part because it does take away from some of the revenue opportunities that the organizers have established. How would you use it in a classroom? Well, when I think of a classroom, of course, I think of both types of classrooms: the distance ed classroom where students are dispersed, and the face-to-face classroom where the students are sitting right in front of you. In both cases, it's probably a good idea to help build community. One of the things I like to do in my face-to-face classrooms is treat part of the classroom as a distance ed, where I send out information after the class session is over. Today we talked about how a bill becomes a law. Here's an interesting article I saw in the New York Times about a piece of legislation. One of my colleagues teaches a marketing class, and one of the things he's done in the past is had his students go around town taking images and using TwitPic to post those images on Twitter. He takes the pictures of the signs, the gas station signs, to track gas prices over time. Political science, I like to have my students take pictures of campaign signs, and the idea, of course, is to see if they can find the campaign signs. Where are they located? Are they at public places, gas stations? Or are they located on the right-of-way of highways? Or are they in people's private yards? And then also who's posting these signs? Which candidates? Are they Democrats, Republicans, etc.? Twitter, using TwitPic, you can post those on Twitter. Local government meetings. I require my students to go to a local government meeting. If a student finds a local government meeting, he or she can post that information up on Twitter, where the meeting is, when the meeting is, what date the meeting will occur. Also, when they get to the meeting, they can post, I'm at the Amarillo City Commission meeting right now. Meeting starts in 10 minutes. Look for me there. It'll give them sort of a sense of security knowing that other students are also at that meeting. Of course, you can use it to share websites, develop study groups, and just in general to build community, sharing information that you may or may not want to share in class. You may not have time to share in class. So how do we use Twitter? How do we get more use of Twitter in a political science classroom? Well, you really have to demonstrate to the students that it is an important tool that you can use for communication, for community building, and it's got to be a sort of continual use. You don't want to post one tweet the first day of class and then one right around midterm. You want to do it fairly regularly, but maybe focus on a topic or an issue, but definitely focus on community building and less on grading. Finally, one of the concerns that some of my colleagues have expressed is this question of, does posting on Twitter about students, or do students posting on Twitter cause some privacy issues in terms of federal law? And that's always something that has to be looked at, has to be folks have to be concerned about. One of the ways you can get around that, of course, is when you send the information about signing up for Twitter, how to get a Twitter account, also include some information about things you don't want to post on Twitter, things you shouldn't post on Twitter in terms of privacy issues. Thank you very much.